All right. Let's kick things off and give a quick marketing update for everyone that's interested, and we'll be recording this for anyone that misses it. They can listen to it on our YouTube in a few days' time. So we're currently in the final push towards Mainnet. I think when Will joins, he might give a slight more comprehensive overview and timeline there, and that'll be a bit more definitive. I'm not sure how much he's ready to share from the engineering side, because I don't know the latest updates from the last couple of days, but we've made some great progress in regards to PR and finalizing everything there. We've also had some conclusive issues with some paid ad avenues that we wanted to explore. So aspects like Reddit and Twitter, it seems, are just not going to be available to us, which is unfortunate. Twitter in the future, we might still be able to get there, but we will be using other avenues for paid ads when the time comes when we launch on Mainnet. In terms of everything else, we do have an exciting little event coming up, ETHDenver, in February. So we will be, this isn't announced yet by any means, but for anyone curious, we will be hosting a poker tournament as a side event there. Will be fun. It'll be myself and then Henry and Will and a couple of other people attending too. Johan, I'm not sure if you're coming or not. I think there was talk about it with Will, but
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to make it, but yeah, I'll talk to Will.
you'll be sorely missed if you can't. But yeah, it will be good. It will be fun. We're putting a lot of work and effort into making sure that goes ahead as smoothly as our go-karting events previously have, and I'm sure it will. So we're looking forward to that. And yeah, that's those kind of the primary updates. Recently, we've had the similar cadence on socials as we talked about on the last contributors call, which is a less frequent posting schedule. And there's been, I'm not sure if anyone has kept up and seen, but there's been some crazy algorithm discourse on X. They open sourced the algorithm and a lot of the information surrounding it. And before that, there was Nikita, I think the head of product for X. It was talking about how crypto Twitter is being ruined by people posting too much and saying GM and all this other stuff that made a lot of people angry. And generally, crypto Twitter has been extremely penalized recently, but things are maybe changing. We'll see. Apparently, there were amendments made, and now that the algorithm is open sourced, it might lead to some changes there. We also published a couple of articles on X since the last call. I think there was at least one since the last call, and a couple of interesting threads. So do go check them out and give them a read. And I think those are the key highlights from the last week or so. We're still missing Will. He's away on Discord, so I presume that he is otherwise occupied. So I'll give a quick intro for anyone who hasn't attended one of these before or hasn't listened to a recording of one before. But basically, the goal is for the engineering team to go through and give a quick recap of what they've done in the last sprint. It's a 2-week sprint that they do, and what they've been working on, and give a little demonstration nowadays, or visual, or whatever they've prepared, which is always fun to see. Although Nitin's missing, so I don't know if there'll be a cool little presentation. But yeah, it'll be a one-by-one going through and seeing what everyone's been up to. I'll let you guys from the engineering team take over now. Johan, do you wanna go first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Nin's not here, so I'm gonna try to just give like a quick little overview of what we've been doing on the front end. Let me get my screen shared here. Okay, so a massive screen. Let me know if you guys have trouble reading anything. But this is a deployed version of one of our PRs that we're working on. And I think in last review, I've already shared this UI here, which is our Vault UI. And currently we're on the Sonic mainnet. And this is a vault that I have deployed on Sonic through Lagoon, which on the left here. But this sprint, what we've added is this deposit and withdrawal flow. So I've been working with Min here, who drummed up this awesome UI here. And you can see that in this wallet, I have already created a redemption request. And you can see the wallet balance. This is the deposits that I currently have in this vault. And all of this is, like I said, on Sonic Mainnet. So it is working in production, if you will. So if we're depositing, let's say 1 USDC, we can approve it here, sign the transaction, give it a sec. Sweet. And then we'll confirm the deposit. Cool. Now you will see that when we have deposited this, it is now awaiting settlement. In this vault infrastructure, when a user submits a deposit request, it gets sent to this silo contract that is outside of the vault until the vault manager, in case us, in our case, me, I settle this deposit, then it will actually be deposited into the actual vault. So yeah, you see this 1 USDC here, and if I come onto the left side, this is the vault management screen on Silo, and there's few roles that they have to manage the vault. I am connected to this wallet, which is a valuation manager, and the point of this is to provide a NAV net asset value for the vault, and you can see that down here, there are these requests, right? So if you look on the right, this should mirror each other. We're redeeming 1 USDC, and this is in shares, right? So AMM that's what I call the shares for this vault. But that should translate into 1 USDC asset, which is what the redemption is for. And then we also had just this 1 USDC deposit here, which is pending currently, right? So looking at this, essentially after the deposit and the redemption request, in our case here, it should cancel each other out. So there's really no asset to unwind here. But I'm probably not going to go through the entire flow to settle this because it's a little convoluted and takes some time. But what we're doing is if I propose this from the valuation manager of the current NAV, then this proposal, the valuation proposal, will then need to be approved by the curator of the vault. So there's this two-step verification process to make sure that the NAV is correct, and if there's asset that needs to be unwind because of redemption requests, that we can do that prior to accepting that settlement. So that flow you can see down here through the transaction histories. We've been doing this, testing the vol back and forth to make sure the values being redeemed is what the user expect. We solved some dust issues where we were leaving. You can see here, actually, we're leaving this 2 USDC dust in the vault from previous depositing and redemption requests. We have since fixed this. So now if we got rid of this dust, then additional redemption requests will not leave this dust in there. But yeah, you can see from here, there's a valuation proposed, and then there's a settlement, and then this deposit was done. And I'm not sure if this is the same one. Oh no, these are the two withdrawal and deposit requests that I have. Yeah, so that's the flow. Ultimately, this asset is sitting inside this safe here, which is the curator. And when the asset is deposited in here, then we can use it to deploy onto other protocols. For right now, we're deploying the Sonic on Silo Sonic USDC market here. But eventually, after our contract goes live, this asset will be then ported over to our protocol. Beyond this, I'm also working with the Sonic team to get some permission set up on the vault. This is their beta product that I'm currently like the guinea pig a little bit on testing how things are working. All of this module exists already on Safe, but this is their beta product, which is a UI to be able to have anyone add modules on top of these saves instead of doing it programmatically. The module that is sitting on top of ETH mainnet is working decently well, but there's still some issues with setting things up on Sonic. Yeah, like I said, I've been working with the team to get through those issues. And hopefully by the time we launch, they will have that sorted out and we'll have everything permissioned. And yeah, I think that's it. Let me go back here, see if there's something I missed. This, I believe, is still hard coded. We're working on the allocation eventually. Yeah, oh, there's also this cancel flow. So if I cancel this, it should just get rid of this deposit request. So give it a second. Okay, perfect. So this is now gone. And if I come back here, it should refresh. Yeah, so now you see that the total pending deposit is 0 because I canceled that request, but there's still this redemption of 1 USDC asset. So that means I have to unwind some USDC here. Previously, you saw this was empty because I had that deposit, which will net each other out. But now I need to actually make sure I have this asset sitting inside the vault before I settle the request. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. If there's any questions, please let me know. But otherwise, I'll hand over to Ishwar.
Thanks, Ivan. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so in the first half of the sprint, we were trying to focus on getting the core contracts like hash for our audit to be able to give our auditors and start requesting audits for the core contracts. So it has mostly been like reviewing like the pending PRs that were there from Bill and Eric and the team. So yeah, like that's pretty much on the core contract side. Like we are still kind of like audits probably will be starting like next week, but we've also been like tied up with other security firm who is helping us improve some of the testing to identify bugs or anything edge cases specifically that we might have missed out. So that's in progress as well. So that is like some of the update. Not sure if Will is around. Yeah, I think Will pretty much be covering most of the things. So I'll dive into the front end side of the things that I've been focusing on. As Johan already shared the demo of the vaults, so have been like assisting Nitin on trying to review the PRs that are there in terms of the functionality and architecting things for the vaults. So right now on the front end that you have seen, we were fetching all the vaults that are deployed, specific vaults that are deployed from using blockchain data. So there is no specific API endpoint for that, and like every time user requests any information, we always have to make RPC calls and refresh the data from on chain. So in order, like we've already seen like multiple rate limits for public RPC endpoints, so we can't really rely on that. And also right now our front end is configured in a way that like only if you connect your wallet you'd be able to access the vaults page. So we need to be having a public vaults page where anyone can just directly access it without having the need to connect the wallet. So keeping those things in mind, we've spent some time trying to move all the vaults related like data or like filtering or any other functionality to move to a API. So I've been spending time on. We already have existing API to serve tokens and some of the other subgraph data related to amalgam pools or like user positions. So we've just tried to extend the existing API to also serve the vaults information. So this is like some of the docs that is auto generated for the current. This API is live, by the way. It's already on the API beta.amalgam.xyz. So yeah, like this is the vault data that we serve from backend to front end, which will pretty much have every data like that is required in order to display on the front end. And it also supports nation and like sorting. For example, if you'd like to sort the data by APY or TVL, so the API already supports that. Or if you're just looking to get vaults from a particular chain, So all those kind of functionality like API will be used, which makes things easier on the front end to like implement all this functionality for the list of vaults that we see. And at the same time, like there is no specific need for anyone to connect the wallet. So yeah, most of the time I've spent on trying to get this API working. Like half the battle has been trying to figure out which things are like static, which needs to be fetched from on chain. And for the API, like there is Lagoon subgraph that provides, which we need to use based on the recent settlements and deposit to calculate them, and also trying to figure out like how long things can be cached. And also we've integrated with CoinGecko API to fetch the current total value logged in USD, not just in terms of underlying asset. Yeah, these have been some of the things. Like Johan already mentioned, allocations is something that is still pending because we still haven't figured out how to get the like how to define or serve the allocations. So that is still like the only pending thing that might need another API endpoint to be able to serve the allocations for a particular vault. But apart from that, everything is there, everything is working. So just in case you guys want to see a sample request. So this is the current like live vault data that is there for the Amalgam Sonic Vault, which Johan just demoed. So we can see all the TVL in terms of USD. There is fees, like the underlying asset, and some short description and everything else. So yeah, that's pretty much from my end. I'll pop on to Johan. Sorry, Eric.
Thanks, Israel. So for the last sprint, I've been working on some test shooting, some failing liquidations, and also spending times on the preview side. Try to there are some issues that's because of the new release and some tests broken. Helped to figure out swap test that failed on the swap. Which is still on preview side, still lots of tests failed, but switched the gear back to on the core side, and since we have CS auditing, found some issues, so started to clean them up. Once this, although those issues are deeper, have to spend a lot of time to debugging, and so honestly, most of the time spending debugging and reviewing the code. So we'll actually fix a lot of them on his end, and also trying to add some coverage test once it's failed. Yeah, still trying to, because of the changes from the auditing, and need some changes that will actually started. I will have to actually give a view the time to talk about that. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing. I'll pop on to you here.
Hey everybody, sorry I'm late. I've been working pretty hard, pretty late almost every day. This day I didn't quite wake up because I was a little bit out of it. Some things that I can share, I feel like things moved at the speed of light this week, so I have a lot of high-level updates. Probably maybe one to start is just like what we have committed to the investors as far as timelines, because I think, I don't know, I'm always hesitant about giving exact dates for anything because we've been notoriously terrible at meeting my expectations on time, and because realistically I think many times they're unrealistic. But I'll just share my screen. I'll try to go through a few things. Let's see. Applications. Let's do. Okay. So yeah, this is the TLDR that I sent to the investors, right? So launch dates. So I think the first one that I feel like we kind of breezed by and didn't give ourselves even enough credit for is finishing all the fixes from the last round of audits. We wrapped up those audits in July, and we're just fixing those, getting everything finally fixed up this sprint. We had a release. I can go through the release for people who are interested. I think I actually made that public. So if people want to look through all the changes, maybe just drop a ping. I'll drop the link to it. We've been engaging, so we'll finish an engagement this Monday. It might get extended. This isn't like a delay thing, but just as far as the original engagement was 3 weeks with a formal verification security team. And the main reason, and I can show some of the results of that too, but the main reason that I was really excited about this is because we found formal verification can almost be like rewriting the code. So it's a lot of work. And so that can lead to it being expensive. And then if you use somebody like Satora or Runtime, that's even like more expensive. We found a team that was actually pretty price effective. Like they really met our needs and they've been really good. And the reason I thought this was so important is because we have done a lot of audits. I've worried how deep those audits have gone. I felt like there were times where in the Cantina audit that I felt like people didn't push many results in the saturation library, and that sort of made me nervous. And so we really just started with the saturation library and starting to formally verify that. So some of the other things that they did is they added a whole test suite of fuzz tests. Like it's pretty extensive. I could perhaps show that as well, since it's not really team related. It's just like somebody that we're contracting with and they're not here to present their results. But it's like we use fuzz testing. We try to really think about ways of fuzz testing. This was comprehensive. They really did a great job of like testing all sorts of things. And that will be something that will be incorporated into our design and just makes the code more robust. And if somebody does something, they're like, oh, I don't know, I don't think this should break anything, but then it does, then we have this test suite to say, hey, this kind of breaks these edge cases. Okay, so that should be finishing up this Monday, but it may go longer just because they're really just producing fantastic results. And so we want to, if they're finding issues, like it kind of is worth continuing to work with them and formally verifying more of the protocol. And this is like a depth versus breadth. Like I think a lot of our auditors have had a breadth approach, not a depth approach. All right, beating a dead horse there. Moving on, 220, we are having a manual audit actually by, his handle is like Phil the Bug Catcher. He was our judge in the Cantina audit, and he did exceptionally well in that audit competition, even though he was a judge and he also had to compete, right? So he was the second top scorer on our second largest payer on that audit. And he now works at Satora, but has doing manual audits and has the flexibility to contract with us independently. I'd like to say that we're getting Satora level quality audit without paying Satora. Really excited about him. He starts on Monday. We wanted to start this week, but there were some things that came out of the first formal verification team, Bravado, that were a little bit bigger and it made sense to fix. So we've been working on that this week. Okay, so this audit will finish on the 20th of February, and that means that we will be able to launch the deposit vaults as soon as the 27th. So this timeline from this audit with Phil to launching gives about 3 weeks to fix anything in the core contracts. If something came up out of this audit engagement that was not fixable in 3 weeks, we may push this back. But the goal is to hit this or exceed these dates, which would be crazy. It'd be the first time I say, hey, we're going to hit these dates. And exceed them, but we'll see what it is. Yeah, we raised some money, and this is actually from December, and then we had token incentives, which I don't know if I can go into here just because of accreditation stuff. Okay, the audits. First, this is the release notes for the version that we had audited this summer to this version. And I guess maybe the best way would just be to like, oh, this doesn't have yeah. There were a lot of audit issues, right? We have a lot of code. I would say if you compare us to any other DeFi protocol, but like I can open up any of these and can see Yuhan fixed it on this commit. Be better in GitHub because I could show you. And that is for every issue brought up, we have a commit hash that fixes that issue. There's a few things in here that were not in the audit that are like below here. Somewhere. Partial liquidations should be in here. I don't know where partial liquidations is. I can go over that separately. It's not in here. Okay, anyway, this is not exciting, is it? So those are the release notes. The audit results so far. We have a lot of AI audits, right? These are the two from July and the release notes. Chain Security ran an audit. It found a bunch of stuff, but as you can see, the responses in here, they're like, oh, this happens, right? This is a bad thing. And then the response like down here is like, I explain why it's wrong. I think these are important things. I will say, like, I am getting converted from like an AI skeptic to an AI fanatic in the last, and maybe I can show one other thing to explain why. But so far, the AI results for auditing have been either nothing burgers, like we've had some scanners that just don't find anything, or they find a lot of things that you're like this they're saying is like a high finding. And I'm like, no, it's not. This is informational. And so it's, what is the example here? Compensate of excess amount of as protocol fee. So this is calling out, this is a high issue, but we designed the system this way. Basically, in the repay, if somebody over repays, they repay more than they owe. Like I owe $1,000, but I overpay by $1,500. Prior, I think I can't remember what we did before. Maybe somebody in the engineering team can remind me what the prior behavior was. But now we take it as a protocol. And the reason we take it as a protocol is that there's not really a good option if somebody overpays. Like sending in the tokens back is expensive in the sense that like we just have a very dense code base that is right at the limits of how much code you can put in a contract. And so the more like functionality we put in, the more we risk like a major architecture overhaul where we have to split up contracts, and it would just be a fucking nightmare. And so we're very adverse to putting any like special handling of these edge cases where really the user fucked up. Like they owe $1,000 and they overpaid by $500. They're an idiot, right? But by taking it as a protocol fee, we actually we don't have to do this, but we have the ability to make that user whole, like outside of the system. Like they come to us and they say, hey, I'm really sorry, I fat fingered this. It was a lot of money. Can you guys please give it back? And we can say, yeah, we'll give it back, or we won't give it back. But we have that power. So anyway, that's one example that this is saying that this is a high, the fact that we confiscate excess repayments. And that's the bulk of these, is that they're low, it's overstated, or it's a false positive. And there were some things in here that we actually were bugs. For example, this fragile liquidity shares, actually Yuhan caught this issue. We sent them this version of the code when it was not fully reviewed, we were trying to like give them something. And Yuhan found this issue and the scanner found this issue. So that's the counter to everything I'm saying, where the one issue that we knew about, they actually found. And so that's like reassuring that it's finding things like this. Yeah. We've basically run every AI scanner. I have some people that are getting back to me this week. Okay, and then this first confirmed bugs was also an AI scanner from the formal verification team. And similar, like false positive, risk accepted. So this is maybe something that they're calling out that is a design of the system that we designed to have that thing in it. False positive, right? False positive. So I spent a lot of time going through like things like this and being like, okay, is this an issue? This is a fun one. We have to round down when we should be rounding up for debt tokens, right? So this is the way it's designed, right? And I give why, like I give a nice explanation of why, but these explanations take a lot of time for me to be like, is this right? Is this wrong? I spend a lot of time on that. Okay. You guys probably don't, maybe you guys do give a shit about audits. I don't know. Maybe you guys can tell me if this is boring or not. And then this report from Provando, the formal verification team, had two deep results that I was exactly why we hired them, is because the saturation library is so dense, and we were worried that like the capacity, like it's not even saying that all our auditors are dumb, but that the capacity of the average auditor in the space is not sophisticated enough to get deep into the saturation library. And these are the types of things that I was really hoping for from this team, and they found. So I'm looking at every bug found as like a huge win at this point, because they're really going to be harder and harder to find at this point. And so we have to be really intentional about how we're auditing things to find these deeper bugs. Okay. And these are easy fixes. I think Yuhan has a PR for them. They're like very easy fixes. So it wasn't like, I think that the thing I'm worried about at this point is more of, you thought about this wrong. You've been thinking in a contradiction and your code doesn't work because of that. So that's the stuff that's, I think, makes me more nervous. Okay, that's the bit about audits. So we're gonna have a release for this. I think over the weekend, we just have a few PRs that need to be cleaned up, and then that release will be what we give to Phil, the bug catcher, to do a manual audit. What else did I want to go over? Release notes. Oh, I think this is fun. Let's see if maybe I can put this in Notion so that you guys are still looking at Notion, right? Okay. I sent this to a few people. This is still a very rough draft. I'm going to get the preliminary white paper and just give you guys a sneak peek. Who did I send it to? Okay. Just putting it in here so we can. Okay, there we go. Now I can give you a pretty. This isn't necessarily comprehensive yet. But it's actually pretty good. It goes through like the protocol design, a lot of the math. I think I need to clean up the variables. There's not a very good naming of all of the variables, but all of the ways we calculate loan to value, geometric TWAP and how it works, the liquidation price selection, interest, this is really out of order. This should be like the first section. This is like the dumbest section. I used AI to help me with this, so there's been a lot of stuff. Like all the formulas I wrote, and I was like, hey, put these formulas together. But the AI is still just so terrible. It's the smartest dumb thing that exists, I swear to God. These are some really interesting formulas from saturation that are really like critical to our system. And so having these like in one place is really critical for auditors, and we're so much more prepared than we've ever been before. Value. This is like solving for the liquidation price is a pretty complicated formula. And actually, this is what we formally verified. This is way too robust. And I need to get half of this shit out because it's some of it is like you don't need computations in a white paper. So anyway, I'm thinking out loud. Partial liquidation framework is a huge thing that I did in Q4 last year that sort of is why things are so delayed, is this section right here of these are redundant from above, but coming up with a way of calculating the weights of X, Y, and L that breaks up a position into two. And I had to do a few rounds of this because there's just a lot of dependencies in the requirements. And did it do the final weights? Yeah. I thought this was like one of those moments where these equations, or if I can zoom into them. But anyway, they came out, I think this is what I love about math, is when you do something really fucking complicated and you get to something that seems much more eloquent than how fucking complicated of a thing you're doing. That to me is beauty. That is like the beauty of mathematics. And so these two formulas, I thought 81 and 82, were very eloquent for how complex of a thing they're doing. So I was super excited about them. I don't know where weight L is. Oh, it's up here. Yeah, it's not as eloquent. But so yeah, this is like the white paper. Right now it's 14 pages. Oh no, it's still going. It's still going. 16 pages? Nope. Oh, here's the conclusion. We're getting there. 18 pages. So I think that I need to cut this in half. But our dynamic fee formula, which, oh my God, Ishwar is like has PTSD from these formulas. But I think he did a great job taking I had gotten 95% of the way there with this, maybe 90. Ishwar, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong. And Ishwar went in and got that last 5 or 10%. Not because I didn't want to, but because it was just, sometimes I'm doing too much and I can't do everything. I gotta offload these things to other people. And I think it was probably 10 times harder to do that last 5% than coming up with everything. And that's the white paper. I told you guys I'm going to be talking for a while because I feel so much shit has happened. Audits. I think the last thing I'll say is that like I worked on fixing, like there's a few PRs open right now. We had some concerns internally, or I had some concerns unrelated to audits to leverage liquidations and their sort of behavior. Oh, I got to show this. There's one other thing I did this sprint that I think is really interesting. I'm going to switch to. Have I like completely lost everybody? Like I feel so bad about how much time I'm taking.
You're the last one to go. You've got all the time in the world.
Okay. So I'm going to show you a video. Let me switch. I'm switching the stream. Bear with. All right, do you see the picture? So there's one edge case that we need to finish. Fuck, I totally forgot about this. I gotta do this today too. This is a straddle position that I'm showing. So there's a few things going on in this chart. At the very bottom, there's this black line and it's like opening upwards. And what it is a straddle. You put in X and Y and you borrow L, and then you basically have impermanent gain instead of impermanent loss. This function is the function for the loan to value. And this function, or this curve, is also the curve for loan to value, right? This is 75%, this is 85%. We don't allow positions to be opened when they have a 75% or more loan to value. We treat 85% as where like we expect the liquidation to happen because it's a Dutch auction. So it doesn't necessarily just get liquidated as soon as it crosses 75%. It has to get somewhere. We think the premium will be sufficient to like execute here. So this is more important to our saturation library than this number. But what I'm going to show you is as interest grows for borrowed liquidity, we're going to watch what happens on this line. Oh, and the last one is leverage. So we only allow the equity of a position to be 1/100th of the like entire deposit. When it goes above that, we have a loan to value liquidation. And so right now, this position is, because it's going up in value, its lowest point is positive, right? And because its lowest point is positive, this can't get liquidated anywhere. Like it will always be, no matter where the price goes. But as borrowed liquidity interest accrues, it will start to sink and eventually it hits zero. And this was some behavior that we missed. The first thing that's going to happen is the leverage hits this point up here, this max leverage point. And as that happens, you can see down here, this orange premium is starting to get bigger. And this is for liquidated leveraged liquidations, what the premium would be if the price is in this neighborhood. And then that premium is starts to go really fast. And just then you saw those lines flash up here. We just hit a point where in the saturation library, we would track these numbers because the position has a liquidation point. I think it's really interesting that it jumps into 85% loan to value and then it's solvent again, and then it jumps to 85% loan to value. It's very interesting how there's this like middle spot in the math where it's fine, but it's not okay here and here. But just for the record, this line, this black line at its lowest point is still positive. So there's not any insolvents, but the system right now would pay like a 46% premium to deleverage this position if the price is in this area. And the reason maybe that kind of makes sense and the design of the system is working as it should be is pretty soon the next thing is this is going to dip, and the price being in this like at this peak is the worst situation for us because of the leverage. So this goes up pretty fast, and then we just hit insolvency. This red area comes out. And for those of you that remember the quadratic formula, that happens right at the point when the radical of the quadratic formula, which is the square root of b squared minus 4ac. In this situation, this is the b squared, and this is the 4 times ac over here. Is that right? No, it's not the 4ac. There's not a 4 for some reason, but it is similar to the square root of price. And when these things multiply together equal this thing is right the point at which this hits 0, right? It's 3, 0. And once it goes below, it's bad, right? We don't want somebody's position to be negative because then they could owe the system money. All right, so this gets bigger. And I think the main problem here, there's a few things that are going on that I'm gonna have to, I think are gonna be just things of the system. Between this point here, right here, the saturation risk for hard liquidations is 0. And here, it gets really large. And now these leverage liquidations have a very thin window, like the premium being like 5% from here to here. This is not a long time for the price moving towards this insolvency. We really want the expected liquidation to happen over here. And I designed all this because there was a situation where we had to divide by 0 specifically related to this. And so I just thought this was a pretty intricate system. But during this period of time, we will be resetting saturation frequently for this position specifically because its risk grows so quickly with respect to everything else. An order of 100 magnitude faster the liquidation risk grows from this point. And it does it very quickly. I'm not moving. That's that much interest. Anyway, so that's a video I created and just basically trying to understand these liquidations, which is still, I guess, the last thing I gotta do this weekend before this fucking audit is handle that case. All right, so I swear to God, I'm not in the manic episode. Like I did all this without anything but coffee and a little bit of AI. And yeah, but that is all the stuff that I did. And we are on track to launch the vaults in February, end of February, and the protocol like 2 weeks prior, 2 weeks after. So any questions? See the chat. Is anyone saying anything in the chat? Sonic call in 8 minutes. Okay. Just stop talking in time for that call. I guess we have a call. Thank you everybody for your attention. If anyone is not on the team, and Chimix is not on the team, so thanks for bearing with us through that and learning more about what we're doing. And so we'll wrap it up.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Catch you guys.